Yeah, I should be setting up to talk about the World Cup today and the boredom of those last two games, but looking at the constant dislikes for the video I did where I said, I'm sorry, I still feel that Malkin's the better player than Ovechkin. It's a funny thing because I have a lot of unpopular opinions, but they're that. Part of what I try to do with this channel, which I don't see very often on TV, is this kind of thing. I don't hear people talking about, like if you're watching TS Center Sportsnet, it's kind of this homogeneous, everybody kind of feels the same, or there's this neutral opinion on everybody. And I like to try to give something different. Now, when I did the video I did this morning, I'm like, all right, well, Shannon, this is going to turn ugly. That's why I am sorry is in the title, because I'm like, yeah, I still see Malkin as the better player. And it's funny because there are 31 fan bases on this channel. Yes, there are Arizona and Florida fans. I know, I've talked to them. And Carolina. And that's one of the unpopular opinions I have, is that there's no need to move anybody. And yes, that includes Calgary. But it's one of those things where, I see these things that I want to talk about, and I'm like, oh man, that's going to be really unpopular. Because a lot of people are going to disagree with me, and then, there's people that are going to say, oh, you're talking about Ovi because he won the cup. And it's like, I cheered when Ovi won the cup. I was happy when Ovi won the cup. I guess the thing is, and the biggest one I can point out is back in the day, Gretzky versus Lemieux. That was the big one. And there were a lot of people that felt Lemieux was better than Gretzky. I never did. Lemieux was a more physically imposing player than Gretzky, certainly. But we never got to find out exactly what Mario Lemieux was offensively throughout his career because of injuries and various ailments that followed him along the way. The funny part is, I argue Lemieux to be the second best player I've seen. And if we're talking about players of this generation that Sidney Crosby, we can say, was the start of, I'd put Crosby as the best, Malkin as the second, and Ovechkin as the third. And they're all first ballot Hall of Famers. And they're all among the best players I've ever seen. And yet, it's an unpopular opinion. If the internet had been what it is right now, back in 1989, guaranteed, this debate would rage. Lemieux, if not for injuries this year, Lemieux would have shattered Gretzky's records. Yeah, well, and those are the kind of arguments that took place back then. But, of course, we'll forget later. There wasn't much argument about who the best goaltender in the league was back then. We all knew it was Patrick Roy. And it's the funny part is, the really funny part is that for anybody who's been a fan of this channel for any period of time, they will know that two of my least favorite teams are the Penguins and the Canadiens. So to admit that Patrick Roy, best goalie I ever saw, and that Evgeny Malkin is one of the best talents I've ever seen, the guy's a beast. Hey, sometimes he crosses the line. Ask Winnipeg about that. But the fact is that he is still one of the best players I've ever seen. And he can put a team on his back. And he doesn't need to be shielded, and he doesn't need any special preference to get there. He is that damn good. And, of course, he's stayed in Pittsburgh. Why wouldn't you stay in Pittsburgh? He gets paid a lot of money. He wins 3 Stanley Cups. Why wouldn't you stay in Pittsburgh? It's a weird argument, and it's one that ultimately is a matter of an opinion. And I'm sure I could formulate a video with opinions on all 31 teams that would manage to make a lot of people angry. Sure, some people would laugh at the other 30 teams. But then when I get to that 31st, it would be, hey, that's my team. I was talking about this just the other day on my podcast. And my podcast is available on Spotify and is available on iTunes. You just look up The Hockey Guy under podcasts, and there I am. And it's a logo of the Canucks on top of a logo of the Bruins. So Canucks and Bruins, and in the middle it says The Hockey Guy Podcast. Just something simple I came up with on Photoshop just to get her done, just so that it could get submitted to iTunes and Spotify. But the one thing that I have to be sensitive of is that for fans, they don't just see these teams as teams. They see them as family. And they see the players as family. It's sort of like what I was talking about last night with sentimental attachment that certain fans have towards certain players. And towards a team, it's absolute. So if I talk about who's going to be in the playoffs next year, guaranteed people will take offense. Any team that I say is going to miss the playoffs next year, people will take offense. Let me give an example. Buffalo. Yeah, Buffalo's not going to make the playoffs. But what about Dahlin? What if they get Carter Hutton and Carter Hutton plays as well for Buffalo as he did for St. Louis? What if he can put up a .930 save percentage? What if Eichel's healthy all year? What if Middlestad's the real deal? And Reinhart continues to develop. If he plays the whole year the way he did in the second half, there's no way they finish out of the playoffs. At the very least, they're in the running. You can't just count them out like that. That's not fair. Carolina won't make the playoffs. But they just got Svechnikov. How can you say they're not going to make the playoffs? They're going to fix their goaltending. Everything's going to be great. There's no reason to think it won't be. They got a new GM. There's a new owner. He's got a plan. It's not part of the plan now to miss the playoffs. There's no more of this slow burn. They're going to make the playoffs. It's going to happen. It's going to happen this year. And Dougie Hamilton. Okay, enough. Florida won't make the playoffs. How can you say that? Mike Hoffman's been added. They would have made the playoffs this year if it wasn't for the fact that they were in the East. They were 16th in the playoffs. They were ahead of Colorado. There's no way that Colorado won't make the playoffs. What are you talking about? Colorado has to make the playoffs. Colorado made the playoffs this year at the last game of the season. There's no way they can miss the playoffs. Look, Nathan McKinnon's just getting better. St. Louis will miss the playoffs. That's not going to happen because Jake Allen's going to bounce back. Vlad Tarasenko had an off year. He's going to get better. There were some health issues in St. Louis. They're going to fix that. All they need is a number 2 center, and they're back in it. Their defense is among the best. Ottawa's not going to make the playoffs. They're going to keep Karlsson. Karlsson's going to bounce back. I know they're getting rid of Anderson, but there's going to be somebody who's going to come in and take over. And if Brady Tkachuk is ready, you can't say they're not going to make the playoffs because, look, it's an odd number year, and they make the playoffs every odd number year. They miss the playoffs every even numbered year. So, therefore, this is safe. Canucks are going to miss the playoffs. What are you talking about? The Canucks are going to miss the playoffs. We've got Ulevy coming in. Quinn Hughes says he's ready. I don't know why you don't think he's ready. He's ready. Pettersson's going to be awesome. He could win the Calder this year. I was going to say Vezina. The Calder this year. And, you know, by getting rid of the Sedins, we've got all this cap space, and they're going to improve the goaltending. Demko's ready to come up. Demko looks like he's going to be awesome. There's no way that you can just say flat out that they're going to miss the playoffs. If the Isles don't sign Tavares, the Islanders lose Tavares. Well, that's it. The Islanders are going to miss the playoffs. How can you say the Islanders are going to miss the playoffs? The Islanders have $30 million in cap space. They can bring in Stastny, they can bring in Green, and they can still have more money to bring in other upgrades. This is going to be... There's no way you can say they won't make the playoffs. This is part of the reason why when I do my season predictions this year, it's going to be a poll too. So I'm going to make my predictions, but then I'm going to say what the channel's prediction is. So that at the end of the year, people are going to go, haha, I can turn around and go, yeah, well, they agreed with me. And it's, you know, on the one hand, it's entertaining and it gives you guys a chance to have your voice heard. But it also means that at the end of the year, when there's a snapshot that people can look back on and go, well, look how wrong. I can turn around and go, well, yeah, but we were all wrong. There are teams on this board that are going to surprise, and there are players on this board that are going to surprise. But between now and October, I go by what I saw last season. So in the case of, for instance, with Pittsburgh, Jack Johnson, I'm going by what I saw of him in Columbus last year. I saw a player who was disinterested, a player who wasn't happy, a player who he looked at points like he had quit on his teammates. And sure, he may very well get it together in Pittsburgh. But if I make that assumption, if I stand here in front of you guys and I go, hey, so let's just say Sam Gagner gets traded out of Vancouver. Sam Gagner just got traded to Arizona today. Now, Gagner had an off year last year, but he's guaranteed to get 25, 30 goals with Arizona because, you know, he just needed to get out of Vancouver. That'd be crazy. That wouldn't make any sense. That wouldn't work for me. I wouldn't feel right saying it. And it wouldn't feel genuine if I said it to you guys. So yeah, I will post the occasional video where I know when I post it, I'll be like, man, this is this is gonna hurt. You're risking something. But the greater risk would be for me to just come out and say, well, the Caps won the cup this year, so I'm going to reverse my position on everything that I held dear in my brain because a 6-game series ended up differently than we may have thought. Opinions on players, you're going to get a vast range. Just sit down in a group of hockey fans and just raise your hand and go, can we all agree how great Eric Lindros was? Make sure there's nothing breakable at the table. Avoid glass. And even with Lindros, was Lindros great? I think Lindros was the best player in hockey for probably 2 or 3 seasons, and then injuries took him out. I think he was held back from ever realizing his full potential by concussions, and it held back his dominance, and I think he was one of the most dominant players in the game. I think Bobby Clark mishandled him. I think he mishandled the draft by Quebec, and yet his fears about Quebec were realized a few years later when the team was moved to Colorado. In fact, I'd go a step further and say that if Lindros had just put on a Quebec jersey and gone and played for Quebec, Colorado may not win the Stanley Cup in '96. Look at the players they got from Philly in that trade. Now hand them all back to Philly and tell me that Colorado gets the Stanley Cup in '96. We don't know. We don't have any way of knowing. Yeah, that's a series I could do. Every now and then I have people saying, you should do a series on this and a series on that. And some of them I go, yeah, okay, and I make a mental note of it. Some of them I'm like, man, that's a lot. That's something really deep state stuff that I don't think I can get into because, yeah, there's a lot of numbers there's a lot of data, there's a lot of stuff. But having the unpopular opinion, everybody has at least a few. I guarantee that if you sat down with Darren Drager or Bob McKenzie or Sid Sixero, Tim McAuliffe, anybody that you see on TV, and you sat down and said, all right, off the record, how do you really feel about insert name of player here? And you're going to get a wide variety of responses. But, as we move towards July 1st, I will likely give you guys an opinion on each contract as it's signed because, I paid attention to guys who were going to be UFA as much as I could, especially in days where there was 15 games on and I had a hard time figuring out. I'd lose a game. I'd be like, oh, crap, I haven't seen the last 2 periods of that game. So I did the best I could. But I feel like if on July 1st I just stand here and I just say, well, the Washington Capitals have re-signed John Carlson to an 8-year, $64 million deal. Isn't that great? I think that's great. And then the next video is just, let's say Carter Hutton signed with Buffalo. He gets a 4-year deal for $16 million. Isn't that great? Then there's nothing else I can offer you guys. Then it eats away at the core of what I wanted to do with this channel, where there could be a civil discourse. Notice I said civil. And it comes down to, I know I've had many a debate with friends of mine over hockey and over sports in general. And sometimes it'll end with, yeah, you're stupid on this one. But most often that's the roughest it gets. Usually it's just, we'll just agree to disagree, and it ends at that. And there's nothing else to it. There's no other animosity or any other ugliness from it. It's just an agreement on a disagreement. So there you go. I can't guarantee that I won't be posting other unpopular opinion videos. I know this is one of those things that people will always argue with me about, and it's just, it's hard because for me, for instance, if somebody played really well for Vancouver, Dallas, or Boston, and if I talk about them being fantastic and all-time greats with anybody from those teams, then people are going to be like, well, yeah, of course you're going to say that. Because, But if anything, I'm harder on players for my teams than on others. And I've been called out on that in the past, and I will admit that. Zdeno Chara, is he Hall of Famer? Absolutely. Have I always wanted to say that? No. There have been times where people are like, do you think Chara's a Hall of Famer? And I'm like, maybe. I don't know. Maybe. Kind of. Sort of. I don't know. Because I don't want to just go, yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. Because then it kind of makes it sound like, oh, well, he's a Boston fan, so of course he's going to say that. Even though I never would have claimed Marcus Naslund was a Hall of Famer. But is Luongo a Hall of Famer? I think so. Yeah. I don't have any problem saying it. At all. I think we're to the point where he's played long enough and his game's been at the best long enough that I think he belongs there. But not everybody agrees. So there you go. As we approach 50,000, and it's it's slowed today, and I think part of the reason it slowed is because of the Malkin Ovechkin video. And did I know it would do that? Yeah. But at the same time, I have to remain true to myself and to what was started over 2 years ago, or I lose it. The moment that I stand here and I'm like, I want to, oh, that's not good. I should just do a video on how everything is wonderful and all 31 teams are going to make the playoffs next year. Because you can't. There's 31 teams in the league and 16 make the playoffs. That means almost 50% of the hockey players in the league miss the playoffs. And I've been thinking about ways to fix the playoff system, and I don't think people are going to like that either. I don't agree with 1 versus 16, and I remember 1 versus 8, and there were still arguments about 4 versus 5 being 2 teams that were too good on one conference, and then the other ones that were 4 versus 5 on the other conference, they weren't as good. So clearly, it's lopsided conferences. So I've got ideas, but I don't think they're necessarily going to be popular, but those are coming. So thank you to all of those who've been along with me for this and for understanding that I'm not always going to agree with people, but I do respect everybody else's opinion. And yeah, it's just, it's one of those opinion things. So there you go. Thank you guys so much for watching. The day has been rather quiet on the free agent front, so I figured I could get this done after what I did this morning. And we'll get into more historical stuff tomorrow, and barring some other big thing that happens, we'll see. I will say this, that as it gets close to 50,000, I was asked to do a dance party for the 50,000 subscribers. I was planning on doing something similar to that on my Entertainment Guy channel. So yes, there will be some form of that posted. And because it'll have real music in it, I won't be able to have any rights to it. The copyright will take over, and all these other companies will make money off me making an idiot out of myself. But yeah, that's coming at 50,000, and I've slowed that tremendously today. But there you go. I've put it out on the main channel. You guys know what's coming, and I may still throw one on the other channel as well, on the Entertainment Guy channel, because I may. But I have to talk about the World Cup on the Entertainment channel as well. Whether I do that right after this video is over or not remains to be seen. But thank you guys so much for watching. I am very proud of the community that's been built here. And I'm not talking about it on here, but there are things going on which I talk about in my podcast, which make this week difficult. But soldier on. And thank you guys for being there with me as I soldier forward, soldier on, and all that wonderful stuff. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, because if I hit 50K, then the party is on. Quite literally. All right. Thank you guys for watching. You guys are awesome. And no hard feelings? Yeah, there's hard feelings. People get very attached to their teams and the players on those teams, and I get it. I do. Absolutely. The funny part is, there's players, legends that just retired from these guys who, yeah, there's a lot of comments about them too. So I get it. But what's weird is I'm not trying to insult anybody, and I'm not trying to make an argument that somebody's not good. It's like trying to compare what kind of pizza is the best. Obviously it's pepperoni, but other people are going to think otherwise because they're wrong. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.